Hey you guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be working on the courier. We're going to be doing Superduty Axle Regear, and we're going to start with the Dana 50 front, which is pretty similar to the Dana 60. So let's get started. We're going to start by taking apart the hub assemblies. We're going to take the caps off of the mile marker locking hubs, and then we're going to remove the first snap ring and then the second spiral lock snap ring. Once we have these out, I'm going to use 2 bolts from the chrome cover to kind of work the hub outwards using a pair of pliers. Once we pop this guy out, we can get to the next snap ring, which is on the outer axle shaft. This comes off, and behind it are 3 washers that we're going to pull out. Make sure you get all 3 of them and don't lose these. Turn the steering to the driver's side, and this makes it easy to get the brake caliper bolts out. Set the brake caliper aside, but don't let it stretch the line. Next, we can remove the unit bearing bolts, and then we'll steer the wheels to the other side, and this makes it easy to get to the front bolts for the unit bearing. You can take the ABS sensor out with the unit bearing, but I prefer just to undo this bolt and pull the sensor out. Next, we can work the unit bearing out and straighten up the axle and pull the axle shaft out. Passenger side is all ready to go, and now we're going to do the exact same thing over here on the driver's side. It's exactly like the passenger side, but with a shorter inner axle shaft. Next is taking off the front drive line. And of course, everything that is in front of the pumpkin is going to have to come out so we can access it, mostly all my steering components. Now we're all ready to go, but first we need to prep all of our new components and press all the bearings in. I take the inner cone and I set it on the surface that has to be pressed, take a bearing driver and start pressing the bearing cone down onto the carrier. This is the Dana 50 front. I will press it down on one side, and then I will rotate the carrier and press it again just to make sure that the cone is being pressed fully and evenly onto the carrier. It's important to keep the bearings and their races together in a match set. I use a paint pen to mark one set just so I can keep them both straight in case they get lost. Let's flip it over and press the bearing cone onto the other side. Once again, we want to make sure everything is perfectly even. I also want to make sure that the bearing cone is able to spin freely and is not being clamped. We just want the inside part of that cone to be pressed down. All right, this carrier looks really good, and we're ready to install the ring gear. I'm going to carefully start the bolts by hand and make sure that we are cinching it down really evenly. We don't want the ring gear to get crooked as it gets pressed onto the carrier. I'm going to go ahead and just be really methodical and start adding the other bolts and go in a crisscross pattern similar to what you would do if you were mounting a wheel. It's very important to also use Loctite, which is supplied in the Yukon Ring Axle Regear kit. We're going to put it back in the hydraulic press to hold it while we go ahead and torque down the bolts. All the specs for this are in the instruction manual or on the QR code that comes in the kit. Once again, you're going to want to do a cross pattern as if you were doing a wheel. You want to make sure that you are tightening everything down really even and really carefully. This is very important. All right, the Dana 50 front carrier is ready to go. Now we're going to do the Grizzly locker for the back, Sterling 10.5, while we're at it. Once again, press the bearings, do both sides, and make sure that that outer part of the race is able to spin. Want to press them really even and just make sure that everything is perfect. Next, we can throw the ring gear, and this time I'm just going to start out on the hydraulic press. This worked a lot better than using the charcoal can that I used before. Once again, start all the bolts by hand, make sure that everything is really even as I'm tightening them down. Then I'm going to carefully start using my impact gun to really cinch the 2 surfaces together. Very important that you don't try to cinch one bolt down too much at a time. Just carefully work your way around the circle, tightening each bolt a little bit at a time in that crisscross pattern. Now we're going to back all the bolts out, and we want to grab that Loctite out of the Yukon Ring Axle Regear kit and put Loctite on each of the bolts. We're going to reinstall them. And this time, just like before, we're going to use a crisscross pattern to make sure that we are not overstressing any one portion of this assembly. Now that we have all the bolts tightened down, we can go ahead and do the final torque with the torque wrench. Once again, these specs are in the manual. I'm going to mark the bolts just so I don't accidentally miss one, because I do not want one of these bolts backing out inside my new differential. Both carriers are now prepped, and we will do the pinions later. Now we can go back over to the front axle and start taking it apart. We're going to take the cover off, and before we take the bearing caps off, we are going to mark them with a punch so we know which one goes to which side and which one is up and down. Next, we're going to pull those bearing caps off, and we can pull the factory Dana 50 ring and pinion out. On the back side, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to take the pinion nut out and then use a pry bar to take the yoke off. The pinion will slide right out, and then I heated up the housing, and this helped the seal pop out. Take out all these other spacers and shims, and then drive out the original bearing races. We're going to punch them out from the opposing side for each front and rear race, and use the same method to punch the inner axle shaft seals out from the front axle. We're going to prep the front pinion, make sure the bearing rides smoothly and is fully pressed on, and then we can go over and install our inner axle shaft seals that come with the kit. There's a tool you can buy online for about 40 or 50 bucks, and this makes installing these seals super quick and easy. I'm not really sure how else you would do it without ruining the seals. Once we have these inner axle shaft seals installed, we can go ahead and take the front race that we punched out, and we're going to cut a slot in it like this. And we're going to use this as our setup race as we use our various shim packs in and out so we don't damage the final race with the bearing that's going to be installed. Okay, we can throw the pinion in, and we're not going to put the crush sleeve in now, but we are going to put the bearing in. This is just for setup. We can put our carrier in and then our bearing caps. Remember what your marks you made on the bearing caps are so we can make sure that they're installed exactly how they came out. We're going to go ahead and paint our marking pattern on the ring gear. This comes in the kit from Yukon, and we're going to roll it back and forth. Our first try looks absolutely terrible, so we're going to pull everything apart and try a different shim stack. Put the pinion back in, put the carrier back in, bearing caps back on, and then we're going to mark the ring gear for the second try and see how it looks. We were pleasantly surprised by the improvement in this pattern. We figured we would use this time to get a baseline for our backlash. So we went ahead and got a dial indicator and checked that out. Obviously, we had a lot of work to do. So we went ahead and pulled everything back out, made some calculations based off of the manual that comes with the kit, and put everything back in. We went ahead and marked up the ring gear for the third try, and we really liked what we saw. So we went ahead and threw the dial indicator on, and the backlash was right where we wanted it. Super happy at this point. But we do have to take it all apart one more time to remove our setup bearing race. The reason you use the setup bearing race is because it's easy to press in and out, and you're not going to damage any of the shims or anything like that. The final race is a little more tough to install. Sometimes you can heat up the housing a little bit, and that will help press it in there. Now we can put everything all back together. We're going to throw in the pinion, and we'll show you what it looks like on the back side. You're going to want to install your crush sleeve at this point, and then of course the outer bearing. Do not install the oil seal yet. Put the yoke on, and then take the nut that you took off the pinion and cut the crush part off of it, and so it's just a regular nut. And we're going to use this just for setup. So we're going to start cinching it down, and what we're wanting to do is set the crush on the crush sleeve. If you go too far, you ruin the crush sleeve and you got to replace it. So we're just tightening it a little bit, and we're testing to see how much play it feels like it has. Once it feels like we're getting close, we're going to get a beam type torque wrench and use it to measure basically the resistance that it takes to keep the pinion turning. This is really specific, and you need to look this up in the book that comes in the setup kit. Once again, we got to take the carrier out, but this should be the final time. We can install the oil seal on the back side of the pinion, and then we can install the yoke for the final time. Now we're going to use the lock nut that came in the kit, and we're going to cinch the yoke down just like we did the first time. The first time we found the resistance of the drag, so to speak. We didn't go all the way to the spec because we wanted to go just a little bit further once we had the actual lock nut in place, and so that way we didn't accidentally let it loosen up. We go ahead and check it one final time, and we are just a tidge more than before, which is what we want with the drag from the oil seal. And then we're going to go ahead and check our backlash one more time, and then also mark our pattern. This looks exactly how we want it to be for our setup. Now we're going to throw the diff cover back on, and we're going to add the additive for the limited slip from Yukon. It's a friction modifier, and then it's time to put the whole front end back together. So axle shafts, hubs, brakes, and then obviously all the steering components and everything. And then we're going to be ready to move on to the rear axle, which is the Sterling 10.5. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and it was super insightful. There wasn't a whole lot of information out there when I did this, so I hope that this information helps you know a little bit more about what you're getting into when you decide to do this job. Totally a thing that you can do yourself in your garage if you have patience and are just really methodical about it. Okay, stay posted for part 2 for the rear axle.